Some of them begged for help. Nobody came. These weren't just rock stars who died young. These were artists who were failed by the people around them, by the system that profited from them, and by an industry that called their suffering a lifestyle. You think you know their stories. You've seen the documentaries. You've heard the tributes. But here's what most people never get told. The warning signs were there every single time. This is not a tribute video. This is the truth. 10 voices. 10 stories the music business would rather you forgot. Stay with us, because by the time we reach number 1, everything you thought you knew will feel different. Number 10, Shannon Hoon, Blind Melon. You know that song. The little girl in the bee costume dancing in a field. No Rain. You heard it on the radio in 1993. Maybe it still shows up on a playlist now. But here's what most people don't know. Shannon Hoon wrote that song during one of the darkest stretches of his life. He was lonely, he was hurting, and somehow he turned all of that into 3 minutes of pure sunshine. Blind Melon came up out of Los Angeles, signed to Capitol Records, one with their debut produced by Dave Jordan, the same man behind Alice in Chains' Facelift. No Rain broke them wide open, hitting the top 20 on the Billboard Hot 100 and staying in rotation for over a year. That B-Girl video became one of the most recognized images of the entire decade. And all I can do is read a book to stay away. Here's the thing, though. While the label was counting the money, Shannon was fighting a cocaine addiction that was getting worse. He was arrested on stage in New Orleans in 1994. That was not rock and roll theater. That was a man in serious trouble. The tour didn't stop. The schedule didn't change. On October 21st, 1995, he was found dead on his tour bus. Cocaine overdose. He was 28. You know I like to keep my cheeks dry today. His daughter was born 3 months later. He never met her. Blind Melon were dropped by their label shortly after. Their second album barely made a ripple. Shannon Hoon deserved a lot better than that ending. Stay with me, because number 9 is about a man who never even got to hear his greatest work come out. Number 9, Bradley Nowell, Sublime. If you grew up anywhere near a beach town or a college campus in the 90s, Sublime was the soundtrack, part ska, part punk, part reggae, part pure Long Beach, California. Nothing sounded like it then. Nothing sounds like it now. Bradley Nowell built Sublime the hard way. They started in 1988, sold records out of the trunk of a car, built a following city by city. By the time Geffen Records came calling, they'd already done the hard work themselves. While their self-titled major label debut was recorded with producer Paul Leary at Track Record Studios in North Hollywood, it was everything their fans had been waiting for. What I Got, Santeria, Wrong Way, an album built to last. Bradley never heard it come out. On May 25th, 1996, he died of a heroin overdose in a San Francisco hotel room. He was 28 years old. His son Jacob was 2 months old. Geffen released the album 2 months after his death. It sold over 7 million copies in the United States. The addiction was known. The label knew. Nobody hit pause. Bradley got a platinum record and a grave. Number 8 might surprise you, because this one had nothing to do with drugs, and somehow that makes it even harder to sit with.
Hey, Rocklore community. Before we continue, let's have a real talk for a second, bro. You know, this isn't just a channel to us. And I hope it's not just a place you come to watch a video and then forget about it. This is a community. It's a place where we get to dig up the secrets of rock and roll, share our favorite riffs, and celebrate the artists who maybe didn't get the love they deserved. Right now, only about 1% of our viewers are subscribed. We can change that together and grow this community. All you have to do is hit that subscribe button with the notification bell on. When you do, you're not just helping a channel grow, you're becoming a member of the Rocklore family. You're signaling to us and to YouTube that these stories matter, that this music is worth preserving, and that this community is a place you want to be. Subscribing is your way of making sure you're always in the loop. It means you'll be the first to know when we unearth a forgotten legend, drop a new countdown, or dive into a piece of rock history you've never heard before. So if you're a true fan of the lore, if you get that same feeling of discovery that I do, then come join us. It takes 1 second to be a part of something bigger.
Number 8, Jeff Buckley. Think about a voice that sits somewhere between everything. Not rock, not blues, not folk. Just something so pure and unguarded it barely sounds like it should be coming from a human being. That was Jeff Buckley. He made one studio album, just one. Grace, released in 1994 on Columbia Records, produced by Andy Wallace in New York.
There was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the
His cover of Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah on that album is now considered the definitive version. And most people who hear it today don't even know Cohen wrote it first. Here's what's wild. Grace sold fewer than 100,000 copies in its first year in America.
Hallelujah.
The label didn't know what format to put them in. But in Australia and the UK, they understood exactly what they were hearing. He was a prophet in someone else's country. He was in Memphis working on his second album when he waded into the Wolf River on the evening of May 29th, 1997.
In the moonlight overthrew ya.
He was swimming alongside a friend, fully clothed. He's singing Led Zeppelin. The wake from a passing boat rolled over him. He never came back up. He was 30 years old, no drugs, no alcohol, just gone. The world discovered Jeff Buckley after he died and called him a genius. He already was one. They just weren't looking. Smash that like button if this is hitting you. It helps more people find these stories. Number 7, Janis Joplin. There has never been a white female rock vocalist with more raw power than Janis Joplin. That is not a warm take. That is the consensus of everyone who ever stood in the same room while she sang. She came from Port Arthur, Texas, bullied as a teenager. Told she didn't fit in. She moved to San Francisco in the mid-60s, walked into a music scene that was changing the world, and she didn't just fit in. She took it over. With Big Brother and the holding company, she recorded Cheap Thrills in 1968 on Columbia Records, number 1 on the Billboard 200. Then she went solo. Pearl was already in progress when she died. Me and Bobby McGee, one of her most powerful recordings, was recorded just 3 days before her death. It was released posthumously and went to number 1. She never heard it on the radio. On October 4th, 1970, she was found dead in the Landmark Motor Hotel in Hollywood. Heroin overdose, 27 years old. And the rock scene around her didn't treat her addiction as a crisis. It treated it as a brand. The raw, bleeding woman on stage was good for business. The broken human being behind the curtain was somebody else's problem. It wasn't somebody else's problem. It was everyone's. Number 6 is the man some people call the greatest musician who ever lived. And the deal that controlled his career? A disgrace from day one. Number 6, Jimi Hendrix. You know the name, you know the guitar, but you might not know just how badly the system around him was broken from the very first signature. Jimi Hendrix signed his original management contract in 1965 for $1. $1. The royalty rate was barely worth the paper it was printed on. That contract dragged through the courts for years while Hendrix was out there literally inventing sounds that had never existed before. Are you experienced in 1967? Axis, Bold as Love, Electric Ladyland, 3 albums that still sound like they came from somewhere beyond this world, produced by Chaz Chandler, released on Track Records in the UK and Reprise in the US. Each one a landmark. Here's the reality of what came after. There are hundreds of hours of Hendrix recordings that have been released, re-released, and repackaged since his death. The people who owned those rights made fortunes. Jimi made almost none of it while he was alive. On September 18, 1970, he was found at the Samarkand Hotel in London, asphyxiation following barbiturate intoxication. He was 27 years old, the greatest guitarist who ever lived, managed by people who saw a gold mine before they saw a man. And the industry has been selling that gold mine ever since. We're halfway through. Which of these stories has hit you hardest? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. Number 5, Jim Morrison, The Doors.
And I love to become a funeral pyre.
The myth around Jim Morrison is so thick that it's easy to forget there was a real person underneath it, a person who was genuinely suffering and who was surrounded by people who found that suffering very profitable. The Doors formed in Los Angeles in 1965, signed to Elektra Records. Their self-titled debut in 1967, produced by Paul Rothchild at Sunset Sound in Hollywood, was an immediate sensation. Now, light my fire. People Are Strange, Riders on the Storm, a catalog that still stands as some of the most distinctive rock ever made. What gets overlooked is that Morrison considered himself a poet first. He published 2 books of poetry during his lifetime. The music was how he reached people. The words were who he was. By 1970, his performances were erratic and painful to watch.
Try now, we can only lose. And I love it.
An arrest in Miami in 1969 for alleged indecent exposure wiped out touring for over a year. And he moved to Paris, trying to find himself outside the spotlight. On July 3rd, 1971, he was found dead in his Paris bathtub, 27 years old. No autopsy was performed. The official cause was heart failure. The full truth has never been fully established.
Undue hesitate is through. No time to watch.
The unresolved mystery became as powerful as the music, and the industry sold both. Number 4 put a man who hated fame into the most blinding spotlight imaginable, and the cost of that was something nobody around him was willing to face. Number 4, Kurt Cobain, Nirvana. This one is personal for a lot of you. I know that. Take a breath. Kurt Cobain did not want what fame became for him. He said it repeatedly. In interviews, in journals, in songs that the whole world sang back while he tried to figure out how to survive being Kurt Cobain. His parents divorced when he was 9. That fracture never healed. He wrote about it his entire life. Nirvana's Nevermind came out in 1991 on DGC Records, produced by Butch Vig. It knocked Michael Jackson off the top of the charts and permanently changed rock music. In Utero followed in 1993, produced by Steve Albini. Rawer, more abrasive, deliberately uncomfortable. Kurt was trying to push people away. Nobody in the industry read it that way. He checked himself out of a Los Angeles rehabilitation facility in April 1994. He flew home to Seattle. On April 5th, 1994, he was found at his Lake Washington home. He was 27 years old. His daughter, Frances Bean, was not yet 2. The business made billions from Nirvana while he was alive. It's made billions more since he died. His suffering wasn't hidden. The system just never built anything to catch him. Number 3 is where I need you to really pay attention. This one goes somewhere most people never look. Number 3, Layne Staley, Alice in Chains. Earlier, I told you some of these artists were failed by the industry around them, that warning signs were there every time. This is the entry where that stops being a theme and becomes impossible to deny. Layne Staley was the original lead vocalist of Alice in Chains. His voice was deep, haunting, and completely unlike anything else in rock. Now, the way he and Jerry Cantrell harmonized was its own language, something heavy music had simply never heard before. Alice in Chains signed to Columbia Records and broke through with Facelift in 1990. Then came Dirt in 1992, produced by Dave Jordan at London Bridge Studio in Seattle. Almost every song on that album is about heroin addiction. Layne wasn't writing fiction. He was writing his own life in real time. The industry heard those songs, released them, promoted them. I'd accepted the awards they won, and then watched the man who wrote them disappear. Some people close to Layne have said interventions were tried, that his bandmates and family reached out repeatedly. That's true. He reportedly attempted rehabilitation 14 times, but the institutional support a multi-million-dollar industry could have provided and proper funded ongoing mental health care was not there. It never is. Musicians work freelance. There is no employer, no mandated health care. Y'all no safety net. By the late 90s, Layne was a recluse. The label had moved on, the booking agents had moved on, the machine had moved on, and Layne Staley was left alone in his apartment in Seattle. One of the greatest voices in rock history lay dead in his apartment for 14 days before anyone came looking. Some people say he pushed everyone away. That's partly true, but the infrastructure to catch him simply didn't exist. It still doesn't. That's not a rock and roll tragedy. Yeah, that's a system failure with a great soundtrack, and that's exactly why Layne Staley's story isn't just music, it's history. Number 2 had a voice people called once in a generation, and what happened 64 days after he was gone still doesn't feel real. Number 2, Chris Cornell, Soundgarden. Audio Slave. Just stop for a second and remember the voice. 4 octaves, power behind every note and control over every breath. Nobody has come close to what Chris Cornell did, technically or emotionally. He co-founded Soundgarden in Seattle in 1984. Super unknown in 1994 on A&M Records, produced by Michael Beinhorn, went quadruple platinum and won 2 Grammys. Black Hole Sun, Spoon Man, The Day I Tried to Live, one of the greatest rock albums ever made, full stop. After Soundgarden's breakup, he formed Audio Slave with members of Rage Against the Machine. Their debut in 2002, produced by Rick Rubin, was another statement of intent. He had battled addiction, rebuilt, gone sober. He had a wife, 3 children, a world tour booked. He performed a Soundgarden concert in Detroit on May 17, 2017. Hours after the show, he was found dead in his hotel room. He was 52. The cause was suicide by hanging. His wife, Vicky, later filed a lawsuit alleging that a prescribed benzodiazepine medication may have affected his state of mind that night. The case raised serious questions about how prescription drugs are managed for artists on relentless touring schedules. Questions the industry has never been required to answer. It still hasn't. Number 1 sang at his best friend's funeral 64 days later, when that best friend's birthday became the last day of his life. Number 1, Chester Bennington, Linkin Park. You need to understand what Chester survived before the end of this story means anything. He was sexually abused from the age of 7. He was bullied at school. He fought addiction, depression, and anxiety for most of his adult life. He carried things that would have broken most people before they ever got near a studio, and then he made it. Linkin Park's Hybrid Theory in 2000 on Warner Brothers Records, produced by Don Gilmore, when sold over 32 million copies worldwide, in the end, crawling, numb, for an entire generation of young people carrying pain they couldn't name, Chester's voice was the thing that made them feel less alone. He understood that pain because he had lived it. He was the godfather to Chris Cornell's son. They were close friends. When Cornell died in May 2017, Chester was shattered. His bandmate Mike Shinoda said he couldn't make it through One More Light, a song about losing a friend even in rehearsal. He was breaking down in front of everyone. He sang Hallelujah at Cornell's funeral. He was barely holding together. The tour did not stop. The obligations were not lifted. On July 20th, 2017, the day that would have been Chris Cornell's 53rd birthday, Chester Bennington was found dead at his home in Palos Verdes Estates, California. He was 41 years old. He left behind 6 children 64 days after his best friend on his birthday. His widow, Talinda, launched a mental health campaign in his honor. She turned unbearable grief into advocacy. The industry posted tribute messages and kept streaming the catalog. None of that is a substitute for the structures that should have been in place before that morning. For every voice on this list, the signs were there. The industry saw them. Houston kept the machine moving anyway. Chester Bennington deserved better. They all did.